Here's a further take on that Michael Slager hung jury. And the thing that troubles me pretty much the most, other than that one jurist that decided he wasn't going to find this guy guilty of anything, is, I guess, the opinion of the federal prosecutor that was on duty at the time of the shooting and has subsequently retired. And his, I guess, additional opinion that people didn't understand what happened prior to the video being shot, that kind of troubled me, only because the person who shot the video said that he observed what was going on before he started shooting the video, and he said that there wasn't any altercation. So anyway, here's the clip from Craig Melvin regarding the mistrial and the jury.
Hi there, Craig. Good morning. Well, the Walter Scott family is obviously disappointed, but is now gearing up for 2 other trials. The local prosecutor here says that she will retry this case, and also former officer Michael Slager is also facing federal civil rights charges at a trial next year. Now, we also spoke with Faden Santana. He is the eyewitness that shot that video that catapulted this story into national headlines. He was in the courtroom yesterday when that judge declared a mistrial. Here was his reaction. Take a listen.
We never expected that this was going to be the outcome.
Officer Slager, when he testified, said that he was in total fear for his life. Do you believe that?
I can't speak for him, but that's not what I saw. I saw a person that was on total control.
Santana says that he is prepared to testify at any future trials. Now, as for Slager's defense team, his attorney, Andy Savage, has not commented since the mistrial was declared. And, Craig, the question is, what was the breakdown of this jury panel? On Friday, of course, we heard from that one juror that sent a note to the judge saying that he could not in good conscience convict Michael Slager. Yesterday morning, we heard that it was several jurors that were undecided. So far, that breakdown of the jury has not been made public, Craig.
Gabe Gutierrez for us there in Charleston. Gabe.
Now, I am really interested. I really want to see what that breakdown is, because all of the reports said it was 11-1. The foreman, who was black, said that it was just one person that was holding out. And now I wonder if stories are going to change in order to give cover to that one guy, whereas 2 additional people or so, 2 or more, are going to come out and say that they were undecided as well, in order to give that guy cover, because he damn sure needs it. And if his name ever gets out, he's going to be under a tremendous amount of scrutiny. But now here's the former federal prosecutor and his basic take on what happened here.
Thank you. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Bill Nettles. He is a former U.S. attorney for South Carolina. Also, the Reverend Al Sharpton, founder, president of the National Action Network, and, of course, host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC as well. Bill, I want to start with you, because I think for the purposes of this conversation, we should note that you were the U.S. attorney who was essentially on duty there in Charleston when all of this went down. Also, the U.S. attorney who was on duty during the Dylan Roof shooting there in the church. We won't talk about that case, but let's talk about the Slager case right now. How surprised were you that the jury deadlocked?
Well, you know, I wasn't terribly surprised. I mean, it was always a plausible option. I mean, as you reported in September a year ago, I mean, there was there was evidence that there had been a struggle on the ground prior to the shooting. There was evidence that that Mr. Scott's DNA was on the taser. You know, that was evidence that could allow a jury to arrive at a decision other than murder. Also, you couple that with the fact it's a very divisive issue within this country right now. And, you know, in order to get a unanimous verdict, you've got to get 12 people to agree on one of 3 options, which is always difficult.
Reverend, a lot of folks got wind of it yesterday that this jury had been deadlocked. And I think in an age where we seem to be seeing a lot more of these videos of officer-involved shootings or killings of suspects, and a lot of folks thought to themselves, if that video can't get a cop convicted, then what can?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was in Washington yesterday announcing the January 14th march around these issues on King Weekend leading into the Trump inauguration. So all of the civil rights groups were there at our press conference and were saying when this mistrial was announced that no matter what the circumstances was, had there been a struggle at the car, whatever, you're watching a man running away from you unarmed. So at what point do you decide you're going to shoot him 5 times and you can't get 12 people to convict on that? I think that it is absolutely justified for many of us to say, well, wait a minute, what is it going to take to deal with some of this? And when we talk about, Craig, that there is still the retrial, which the solicitor is saying they will do, and the federal trial, we don't know whether Senator Sessions, if he's confirmed as Attorney General, is going to have that federal trial. We will have a new head of the Justice Department who will determine if that federal trial will go forward, because we've seen new attorney generals come in before and put aside prosecutions that they're proceeding or their predecessor had decided to do.
Bill, likelihood that Officer Slager manages to avoid conviction there on a state level and manages to avoid conviction or perhaps even a trial altogether on a federal level?
Look, I mean, on the federal level, I mean, I think the 1983 charge is probably pretty strong. On the state level, I mean, there's going to be a retrial. And, you know, at some point, the community will have a decision made by a jury that they can coalesce around. You know, these things take time, and this is a very complicated issue, and they'll retry it, and at some point, there will be a verdict in this case.
What made this particular case so complicated, Bill?
I think what made it more complicated is the fact that, you know, a lot of the people in the country made up their mind about that horrible video. I mean, based on just a horrible video, which was horrible, okay? There's no doubt about that. But, you know, what makes it complicated is that it's hard for people to understand that there's more to the case than just this horrible video. Now, I don't know what the ultimate resolution of this case should be at the state level, but, you know, in order to have an intelligent conversation about it, we need to realize that there's more to it than just the video. And these people in this jury did a Herculean task. I mean, they took a month out of their life, and, you know, they listened to all the verdicts, to all the jury, and I mean to all the evidence, and they just couldn't arrive at a verdict. This case will be retried, and you know, at some point we'll have a resolution of this case in the court system, and we'll be able to move on.
Rev, I want to put up some numbers here. These are numbers over the past decade. These are conviction rates for police officers. This is compiled by the Washington Post. This is something that they've been tracking. Of the 54 officers who were charged for fatally shooting someone while on duty over the past decade, 35 of those cases have been resolved. Of those, a majority, 21 officers were acquitted or saw their charges drop. Why do you think it's so difficult to get a conviction in a case where the officer is a shooter?
Well, I think that, one, you're depending on, in most cases, and I've been involved from a civil rights point of view in many, most cases you're depending on colleagues of the officer to present the evidence. Doesn't mean that they will not, but it means that you have clear choices they have to make, because sometimes they're considered having gone against the brotherhood, so to speak. The other is because of the prosecutors have a conflict in being aggressive, which is why sometimes we've demanded to go to the federal government, and in this case, in Walter Scott, I was part of those with Reverend Nelson Rivers and others that stood with Elder James Johnson and called on that. That, again, Craig, may change with Sessions if he's Attorney General. We may have to use the Cuomo model in New York and say, let's have state special prosecutors, because going to the Justice Department may not be an option after January 21st, 2017. If Sessions becomes the Attorney General, that's going to be the next battleground.
That's not something I think a lot of folks have thought about until you raise that issue. Reverend Al, always good to have you. Good to see.
Yeah, so I guess a video that shows a cop shooting a man anywhere from 15 to 30 feet away and hitting him 5 times while he was in fear of his life. Now, fear is a funny thing, and fear, in all accounts, throws off the accuracy of the shooter. And this guy's accuracy was so strong that fear still allowed him to hit his target. And fear my ass, he wasn't afraid of shit. He had decided he was going to shoot this guy. He wasn't going to run and chase this guy any further. And anything else as far as excuses why a guilty verdict could not be found, that's coming from a different place. And hopefully the state prosecutor is going to bring this case again, and this time find, as I indicated previously, 12 people that can make a determination based on the evidence.